Who's excited to be in church? Do you know what? I don't put that into my notes, but I say it every single week. I honestly, I really am excited because there's nothing better than getting into the presence of God. Like, it really does. It changes our perspective. And there's been times where I haven't wanted to come to church, been straight up, but I always leave so much better. Do you know, like, this life that we live isn't linear. Like, it'd just be impossible if it was. And the reality is there's ups and downs, yeah? And we all thank God for the ups. And we thank Him for the downs. And all this in between, yeah? Well, we should. Is there anybody in the room that is a little bit OCD? Anybody that's very particular? Because this is really going to wreck your head, because, so if you've been with us any length of time, we've been journeying through Genesis, okay? And we haven't really got out of Genesis. And rather than going at it like systematically and chronologically, we've been jumping all over the shop, okay? So a couple of weeks ago, we had our Vision Sunday. And we talked about the whole idea that we're all called to be on assignment, yeah? We talked about the idea that it's one thing to have a dream, it's another thing to live with a dream. So we were all like, yeah, that's fantastic. So we parked that and we left that there. And then we went back and we looked at the life of Jacob, which was great because we all realized that we all have ego, we all have pride, and we all just need to kick it out of our life. Just me? Excellent. So now what we're doing is we're going to go back to what we hit on Vision Sunday. Because over the next couple of weeks, I want to really lean into the idea that how can we live with a dream? Now, please don't switch off, because sometimes when you hear stuff like that, remember last week we said that we're never going to be a destiny church. We're never going to be an all-out purpose church. That all that this is just about my purpose, my plan, what God's going to do in my life. That's not what this is about. But we really want to bring it back, and we want to look at the life of Joseph, and we want to come at it from the posture that it's one thing to live the dream. How many of you are living the dream in the room this morning? Excellent. So you all need to learn how to live with a dream. And this is what we're going to do, okay? So in Genesis 37:5, 5 simple words, it says, now Joseph had a dream. He had a dream. Who here has a dream? No, I really mean, who here has a dream in their heart? Who here would love to see that dream fulfilled and be manifest in their life? Is it your dream or is it God's dream? Who here likes Disney? It's contentious. Do you know that Hollywood has hijacked our idea of love? Do you know that Hollywood has hijacked our idea of dreams? Like, when I say the word dream, like, I don't know if in your head that there's a song with dream in it. You know, do y'all know the song Somewhere Over the Rainbow? Does anybody here know Cinderella? Now, I don't know why this song came into my head, because I don't really like Cinderella. But there's a song in Cinderella. Do you know it? Esther read my notes. I ain't going to sing it. But no. So she says, something, 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 something. No matter how your heart is grieving, if you keep believing, the dream that you wish for will come true. I'll say it again. No matter how your heart is grieving, or if you keep believing, the dream that you wish will come true. She's lying. It's nonsense. Don't listen to Cinderella. She speaks to rats. But in a sense, we're like this. We listen to this and we're like, that sounds so good. Like a dream. Like, my heart is grieving, my heart is breaking. But if I just believe in this dream and I wish in the dream will come true. Do you know, I've had some dreams not happen in my life. I've had many dreams happen in my life. But what I'm trying to say is that there's the world's view of a dream, and it's living the dream. And the thing about this is it's always changing. It's like jumpers for goalposts. The target always moves, because when you attain the thing that you think is going to keep you happy, then you get there, you realize you want something else. You want something different. So if we're going from the world's perspective of I'm living the dream, you're going to be bitterly disappointed. And you're going to chat to Cinderella, and you're like, Cinderella, you let me down. Cinderella, what are you doing? No, don't speak to Cinderella. But then we come to this place, and I'm going to live with a dream. And this is what we see with Joseph. Joseph was a guy who lived with a dream. Joseph, he wasn't just living the dream, he lived with a dream. And so Joseph, he's 17, he's his father's favorite. He gets this beautiful coat, this coat of many colors. And he has a couple of dreams. He goes and he tells his brothers, hey, I had a dream. I'm the big cheese. I'm the big dog. What's going to happen is you guys, you're all going to bow down to me. And the brothers are like, yeah, I'm sure. Then he has another dream, and he goes to his parents and he's like, you guys, you're going to even bow down to me. Now, I love my family. And if I ever went around and said, hey, Ma, I love you, but I had a dream, and it turns out that it's all about me, and a time is going to come where you're going to bow down in front of me. Like, she wouldn't be very long about telling the father to come and sort me out. If I went and said that to my brother, now I'm taller than my brother, I think I could take him. I'm saying that because he's not here. But if I was to say that to my brother, he wouldn't be long about chopping me down to size. So in a sense, this is what's happened to Joseph. He's gone and he's shared something too soon. Have you ever shared something too soon, only for it to get destroyed and dismantled and just squashed and squished in a moment? I think sometimes when God is developing a dream in our hearts, sometimes we need to just hold on to it. And we need to take it to Him in prayer and allow Him to nurture it. So Genesis 39, 1 to 3. Do you know what? God's dreams never happen right away. So if you want to know if there's a God dream on your life, it never happens straight away. You got to hold them loosely, but you got to trust God fully, yeah? So Joseph, a slave in Egypt. Now Joseph had been taken down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, an Egyptian, bought him from the Ishmaelites who had taken him down there. Say, taken. The Lord was with Joseph, and he was a successful man. And he was in the house of his master, the Egyptian, and his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord made all he did to prosper in his hand. Okay, let's just pause there. I want to go to Psalm 126. Okay, I'm going to tie all this together in a little bit. A song of ascent. So this is David. David, he wrote this wonderful song of gratitude, and he's just declaring how great and how majestic God is. And it says that when the Lord restored the fortunes of Zion, we were like those who dreamed. Like those who dreamed. Our mouths were filled with laughter, our tongues with songs of joy. Then it was said among the nations, the Lord has done great things for them. So it was this thing that they could see, that there were people that lived with a dream, and that the people were blessed by these people. So I'm going to park that, and then I'm going to pick that up at the end, okay, in case anybody has lost me. So jump back in to Genesis 39, 4 to 6. So it says that Joseph found favor in his sight and served him. Then he made him overseer of his house. This is Potiphar. And all that he had, he put under his authority. So it was from the time that he had made him overseer of his house, and all that he had, the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. And the blessing of the Lord was on all that he had in the house and in the field. Thus he left all that he had in Joseph's hand, and he did not know what he had except for the bread which he ate. Now Joseph was handsome in appearance. So we're going to be looking at Joseph being handsome next week, because Potiphar has a desperate housewife, and so we'll be looking at that next week. Is that cool? So Potiphar, he was the captain of the Egyptian guard. A lot of people, a lot of theologians, scholars believe that Potiphar was the third most powerful man in Egypt. So in a sense, Potiphar, he was over all the armies. If Pharaoh came and if Pharaoh said, hey, Potiphar, I want you to gather the army. I want you to take the boys. I want you to go down and siege this place. I want you to go do this. This is the kind of authority, this is the kind of responsibility that Potiphar had. And what we see is that Joseph, he is in this place. And what's so interesting is that Joseph was living with a dream. But because Joseph was living with a dream, God was able to bless Potiphar because of Joseph. Does that not blow your mind? That Joseph's life, nothing about it was he was living the dream. Everything was going against him. But because he was so steadfast, because he was in this place, and he knew that God was with him, and he knew that God was for him, and he knew that there was a dream of God on his life, he was just consistent and faithful where God had him. And because he was faithful and consistent with where God had him, God blessed other people because of him. Which makes us wonder, who does God want to bless in our lives? What does God want to do? So Potiphar, he didn't worship the God of Joseph. He didn't serve the God of Joseph. He didn't have a lifestyle that would have honored the God of Joseph. But somehow, because of Joseph, we see that he was blessed. That all he ever had to do was concern himself with what he would eat. And you know what? I think that's a good place to be. So, has anybody here ever heard of cheat codes? So when we hear of cheat codes, we think it's a bad thing. Anybody play video games? I don't really play video games, but there is a thing in video games called cheat codes. And these cheat codes are actually legal. That the developer, I've lost an awful lot of people. There's like 4 people like video games, yeah? And everyone else is like, what? Just go with me. So there's cheat codes. No, that was last week. So the video games, there's cheat codes. And these cheat codes are there to help you get an advantage in life. Do you know that there are cheat codes when it comes to the kingdom of God? Okay? Now don't switch off, because if you switch off, you're going to leave this place and you're going to be like, man, he's gone off the rails. We need to contact CCI. There are cheat codes. So I'm going to give you 5 cheat codes, and we see these 5 cheat codes appear and show up in the life of Joseph. And I really do believe that if we implement these cheat codes, that we will start positioning and posturing ourselves in this place where we start living with a dream. Okay? So do you want the first cheat code? I'm not going to give it to you yet. Genesis 39:1, it says, Joseph, a slave in Egypt. Now Joseph had been taken down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, an Egyptian, bought him from the Ishmaelites who had taken him from there. So when Joseph arrived in Egypt, he arrived as a slave. Okay? So remember, we read out that portion of scripture, and it says that Joseph had rose in rank in Potiphar's house. That Potiphar trusted him with so much. But when Joseph arrived in Potiphar's house, he didn't arrive at the top. Joseph arrived in at the very bottom rung of the ladder. Because there would have been so many slaves. Joseph wasn't the only one. And in a sense, I can imagine what's going on in Joseph's head. He's like, man, I'm going to outslave everybody. I'm going to be the best slave that Potiphar has ever had. I was like, why are you going to do that, Joe? And he's like, I'm just going to do that because I'm living with a dream. Because there's something inside of me. I don't know why my life has happened the way it has. Remember, living with a dream, and his brothers threw him into a pit. He's living the dream. He's living with a dream. And then he was bought and he was sold as a slave in Egypt. But there's something in him. And he's like, I don't care what my circumstances or my situation are like, because I know that God has put me on assignment, that God has done something, God is doing something. And this is such a subtle perspective shift, because he goes in, he's like down and he's down and out from our perspective, and it's just like there's no way up. Have you ever felt like that you've just reached the bottom? That things couldn't get any worse? Can I encourage you, things can always get worse. Like, that's the good news. If you think that you're just barely clinging on, you have a little bit more to go. And that's okay. Remember, there's this, the cultural shift is, if you're living with a dream, and if you find yourself in Joe's position, what happens is you get angry with God. You get bitter with God. And you say, God's not working, or God's not real. And you throw God out with the bathwater. But if you are living with the dream, what happens is that in these moments, you start to realize that, no, I'm not going to put God to the side. I'm not going to do this. In fact, I'm just going to accept my lot in life. That God knows what he's doing, yeah? And remember, we looked last week, Jacob wrestled with God, and he asked God to bless him. And we think God would bless us with stuff. But the reality is God blessed Jacob with a new identity. So how we want God to bless us is completely different to what the blessings of God will be in our life. So the fact that Joe was in Potiphar's house was a blessing. Or in a sense, it was a divine setup. And we all pray and we're like, I wouldn't mind a divine setup. I wouldn't mind God to pick me up and drop me someplace in the middle of his will. But what if the middle of his will doesn't actually look like what you thought it would look like? He had been brought down. He had been taken down to Egypt. Hindsight is a great thing, yeah? Have you ever looked at your past and you have the full picture and you're like, if only I had that information, I would have done things different? Just me? No, it's everyone. So, King David, he had hindsight. Okay, 700 plus years after the fact, in Psalm 105, he writes this. In verse 16, it says, he called down a famine on the land and destroyed all the supplies of food. And he sent a man before them, Joseph, sold as a slave. Just leave that up. See that? He called down a famine on the land. This is God. So God knew that when Joseph was in Potiphar's house, that there was a famine going to come. It hadn't come yet because Joseph wasn't in the place where he could orchestrate change. It says that he sent a man. But we read in Genesis that Joseph was taken down as a slave. I was like, no, you've gotten it wrong. Joseph wasn't a slave. He was sent. And this is the first cheat code. Honestly, you need to get to this place where you are right now in your life. You were sent. You're on assignment. Now God, he is over everything, yes? No, you can answer me. Is God over everything? Is he sovereign? Can he do whatever he wants? Does he know the beginning from the end? Does he hold you in the palm of his hands? He has sent you. And this is such a subtle shift because we can get to the place where we can play the victim or we can be the victim. And in this situation, Joseph was the victim. But he didn't play the victim. And I think we live in a day and age, maybe you'll agree, maybe you don't agree, but that's okay. We live in a day and age where we have people playing the victim so well. And here's the thing, I'm not trying to minimize anybody's hurt. Like, I know that there are people, and you have been so hurt in the past that, there's stuff that's like really left a scar and a wound on you. But the wonderful thing is, you were a victim, but you're not playing the victim. But what happens is when we start to play the victim, we get down in the dumps. And we're like, oh, woe to me. Oh, my life is terrible. Oh. And you know those people. I hope you're not those people. I really do. Because when you start to play the victim, you start to take your eyes off Jesus and you start to put it all fully and firmly on you. And it's woe to me. And then everything gets so insular looking. And then what happens is you start to negate the dream that God has on your life and the dream that God has for your life. And this is why Joseph was able to succeed where he was. Because even though he was a victim, it was a divine setup. That even though he was in this place he didn't want to be, God sent him. And for you and I this morning, we need to get that in our heads that you're not in Tullow by accident. God sent you to Tullow. You're not in Ireland by accident. God sent you to Ireland. Even in your work, you might not even like your job. Don't be a slave to it. Have this perspective, have this mindset that no, you're sent. God sent you to that place because he has a job for you to do. Maybe there's somebody that needs encouragement and he's going to use you as his hands and feet. You're sent. You're on the assignment. When you think of a military force, who here likes army movies? Has anybody seen Hacksaw Ridge? Man, it's a fantastic movie. And he doesn't even have a gun. No, but you should watch it. But there's this thing that he knew that he was sent and that God had him there for a reason. And it's a true story. And he saves 75 or whatever amount of people, all because he knew he was sent. And for you and I, God has deployed us. God, in a sense, before the foundations of the world, he has said, do you know what? Fran and Derek, you're going to Tullow. Oisin, you're never leaving Tullow. Anna, get out of Romania, get to Tullow. No, but this is it. And sometimes we're like, oh, but God, you got it wrong. I love Ruth. I really do. And she wanted to marry a farmer. And she wanted to move down the country. And for her, the country was anywhere. And she was like, I'll go anywhere outside of Dublin. But God chose Tullow. And it's not that she was forced. It was like, no, God had set it up because it was a divine assignment. So the first cheat code, and I spent a little bit longer on this, the first cheat code, and it's not even a cheat code, it's just a change of perspective. You're not a slave, you're sent. That wherever you are right now, you're sent. Wherever you are, you need to be on assignment. You're sent. To be sent means you're deployed, you're dispatched, and you're propelled. So, if Jesus was sent, and Joseph was sent, then surely there's something about our lives and living with a dream that we are sent. And I really want you to wrestle with this. Because you're not just living where you're living right now because it was the best or the cheapest house price. You're not living and you're not where you are right now because it was the best job. The reality is you are where you are because God sent you. You're working where you are because God sent you. You're in this church because God sent you. And if you don't like us, we'll send you. No, we won't. But we need to get it. We're really quick to assume that when the circumstances of our life are undesirable, that God doesn't care or that he has detached himself from us. So the cheat code number one is you're not a slave, you're sent. The second cheat code, it's very, very simple. It is you're not sent alone. God's not going to send you on your own. He's not going to send you alone. It says that the Lord was with Joseph. He doesn't send us alone. God was with Joseph in the rejection. God was with Joseph in the hurt. God was with Joseph in the pit. He was with him in Potiphar's house. And he was with him in the prison to get all the peas in there, yeah? But the reality is, we need to understand that if we're sent, we're not sent alone. You're not going on your own strength. You're not going on your own initiative. You're not going on your own desire. It's you've been sent by God, and he will go with you. In fact, okay, in Genesis 39, it says that the Lord was with Joseph. it repeats it 4 times, just to make it obvious that even though Joseph's life wasn't going the way he wanted it to go, God was still with him. So the truth that you need to hold on to this morning, that no matter where you are in life, God's with you. No matter what it is you're going through, God is. It's simple. But it's a cheat code. It doesn't seem like much of a cheat code. For all the video gamers, they're like, oh man, the cheat codes I was given were better. Like you get 15 extra lives and like 40 tokens and stuff. Isaiah 41:10. So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you, and I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. So he's with you. And this is why Joseph was such a success. It wasn't because of anything other than the fact that God was with him. And because God was with him, Potiphar was able to see that there was something on Joseph's life. I wonder when people look at you and when people look at me, do they see that there's something different about Niall? I wonder when people look at you in work or in the supermarket or wherever, do they see something different about you? As they should. God will send real people into real life to have a real impact. And this is what it boils down to. The church isn't just confined to this building. We are the church, and there is a marketplace. And what's happened is the church has started to retreat. And when the church retreats, the values of Christianity retreat. And then what happens is the nation decays. And we live in a day and age where this nation, Ireland, is decaying. It's falling apart at the seams. Would you agree? I love it. I love this nation. I really do. And the wonderful thing is, God has sent you. And he has sent me. And he says that you're not on your own. There's an assignment. And that we need to get on board with the assignment. There was a quote from a Christian article in the States. And it says that the great shortfall of Christianity in the 21st century is that Christians no longer see that God is still willing to be greatly used by men and women in every sphere of life. So, in a nutshell, it's like Christians have now come to the place where they're like, God is okay for a Sunday morning, but that God doesn't want to use me every day on a Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. How sad is this? That if we were to just limit God's power and presence to just an hour and 10 minutes on a Sunday morning, like how poor is that? But because we know we're sent, because we know we're not sent alone, there's something in us that rises. And it's like, send me. Who will go? I will go. To Hawaii. Where do you want me to go, God? Solo. No. Really? But you're here because God orchestrated it. We don't expect our faith to spill over into every area of our life. Can I be honest with you? I think that our faith, our relationship, our love of Jesus should flow over into every area of our life. That we should be impacted. There should be something in us. That I'm not just a Christian on a Sunday morning, but I'm a Christian every day. I'm not just a part-time Christian. I'm just not a night shift Christian. I'm an everyday Christian. And this is where we need to get to, that we allow this to overspill. So I'm not sent. I'm not sent alone. The third cheat code, okay, are you ready for this one? It's to care. I know you're thinking, man, Niall, these are really bad cheat codes. They're not. They're not, because we need to care. You need to care about where God has you. You need to care about where God has positioned you. Is there anybody here working in a job that you don't like? You need to care. Honestly, have you ever worked in a place And you can look at your co-workers and you know that they're doing the very least, the minimum amount of work that they can do to get away with just doing some work. Do you know those people? We can see those people. And if we can see those people, the boss can see those people. So remember, we're looking at the life of Joseph. He came in and he started on the bottom rung of the ladder, and there was something in him, and he's like, I'm going to outslave everybody. I'm going to be the best slave that this Potiphar has ever seen. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And this is Joseph's perspective in this sense. It wasn't that I'm working for him. It's like I'm doing everything unto God. And this is a command that we've been given in Colossians 3:23. Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord. Whatever. That's it. Whatever you do. Gerhard, whatever you do it unto the Lord. Rachel, same goes for you. Richard, you're counted in as well. Everybody, whatever you do, you need to care about this stuff. Now, I was in a church many years ago, and I got in, and honestly, I was just happy to serve. Now, I'm not saying, pat on the back, Niall, fair play to you, but I just wanted to get in because I realized that, I'm not naturally charismatic. I'm never going to be that guy that stands out in a room. So one of the things that was input into me from a very early age was just work hard. Just like wherever you are, just do it to the best of your ability. And then you get saved and you realize that actually what I'm doing, I'm not actually doing it for them. I'm actually doing it because the Lord has given me this opportunity, and I want to honor the Lord with what he has given me. And do you know what? Sometimes I have failed. Sometimes I haven't reached the standards, or I've clocked off early. But there's something in me. And I remember my ma was talking to this guy, and he's like, do you know what? Niall was with us for 2 years, but we got 5 years work out of him. And I'm not saying that to pat me on the back. I'm really not. All I'm trying to say is that wherever you are, if you really believe you're sent, if you really believe that you're not sent alone, that wherever God has sent you on assignment right now, you need to care, because he is the one that's going to open up the doors. He is the one that's going to promote you. He is the one who knows. And because we care, people will see that we care. And because we're willing to go the extra mile, people will see that we're willing to go the extra mile. Because we're willing to show up early, people will see this, and then they'll start to ask the question. It's not like, how great is Niall? It's like, why is Niall the way he is? I was like, man, if you knew the real Niall, you wouldn't really like Niall. But the reality is, I'm on assignment. The reality is, can I tell you about my God? There is a hunger out there. There's a spiritual awareness and an awakening. People are hungry for spiritual things. And what they're doing, they're going to all the wrong places. How will people know what the right way is? How will people know what the truth is if we don't care? And there's practical examples that you can care. And you know them. You don't need me to belabor this point. But you know that you can care more in certain arenas of your life. Yes? Turn to your neighbor and say, that's for him. Or that's for you. Integrity. Proverbs 11:3. The integrity of the upright guides them, but the unfaithful are destroyed by their duplicity. Integrity. We all love integrity. I shared this story. Now, I'm coming to the end. Like, this cheat code and the next cheat code are like very, very short. A couple of years ago, I was a sales rep for Board Gosh. I used to go around knocking houses. Hello, my name is Niall. I've got a very, very special offer in the place of the neighborhood today. Would you please sign up and give me money? No, I'd do better than that. I really would. But I was chatting to a mentor of mine one day, and he said, Niall, whatever you do, don't ever lose your integrity for a sale. And it stuck with me. And I remember going to a door, and we were told that if you can get the customer's bill in your hand, you're on a winner. And I remember this woman, she was very eager to leave her provider, and come with us. And I said, can I just see your bill? And I'll be able to work out and tell you how much money I'll be able to save you. Now, I hadn't made a sale for 4 days. So in my head, and I had a wedding to pay for. So in my head, I'm like, ching. And I looked at her bill and I'm like, oh no, I'm not going to be able to save her money. And can I be honest with you? In my head, in that moment, there was a wrestle. It's like, Niall, go on, do it. And with another part like, Niall, don't lose your integrity for a sale. Just don't. And I sat her down and I said, I can't save you money. I was like, but your bill is going to be out of date in a couple of months. Here's my number. Give me your ring and we'll put you on to a cheaper offer. And she said to me, thank you so much for being so honest. I don't know if many people would do that. And I was like, oh, great. That will definitely pay for the wedding. And I remember I left and I rang Ruth and I said, Ruth, I'm not cut out for this. Like, I wasn't able to sign a lady up who wanted to sign up. And she's like, no, you've done the right thing. And the reason I say that is integrity is so important, okay? Because we're called to walk with integrity. Joseph walked with integrity. And when we look at integrity and the word integrated, they're very closely linked, yeah? So remember this idea that my faith, my Christian life, it should overspill, it should overflow into every area of my life. We need to make sure that as Christians, that there's integrity within us. That it's not just 3/4 of Niall is a Christian, but I leave a little bit out for me just so I could do me. That I need to be fully integrated as a Christian. I need to be fully integrated into the things of God. That if Anthony was to come up here and if Anthony was to chop me in half, that he would see that every bit of me is a Christian. I know you might be asking me, what is a Christian? Let's not hang out there. But you know what I mean. Imagine if Anthony got up and he cut me in two and I was just a mishmash of everything. He'd be like, no, you're not very integrous. And this is the reality for each one of us this morning. We're talking about cheat codes, yeah? We're talking about living with a dream, yeah? If you want this dream to be fulfilled in your life, you need to realize that you're sent. You need to realize that you're not sent alone. You need to have this thing in you that wherever God has sent you, you're going to care. You're going to work at it as if you're working onto the Lord. And that in every area of your life is going to be integrated that you are who you say you are. And if you say you are a child of God, then you need to act a certain way. You need to live a certain way. That's the good news. You be fully integrated. Man, do you know, I'm going to ask the worship team to come back. I play tennis, okay? I'm very competitive. I like when I win. I don't like when I don't win. And one of the things that I realized from a very early stage was that when I go and play people, I'm like, hi, I'm Niall. And they're like, hi, I'm whoever. I'm like, what do you work at? And they'll tell me what they work at. And then I'm like, they'll obviously ask me the question. And I'm like, I'm a pastor. So within that moment, now this pressure comes on Niall that Niall needs to act a certain way. Because I can't be baiting the racket off the ground. I can't be like, or hitting the ball. They expect something from me. Because when people hear that you're a Christian, the reality is they're going to hold you to a higher standard. When people hear that you're a Jesus follower, in their head, they'll go to a certain way. And if you're not acting how they would expect you to act, then they're going to be like, there's something off with you. Now, I'm not saying that we need to live our life based on other people, but there is this standard, there's this expectation that for each one of us in the room, instead of lowering our standard in our Christian walk, we need to raise the standard in our Christian walk. Is that cool? When it comes to being fully integrated, I think we all need to raise the standard. And the last cheat code, are you ready? It's gratitude. Like this here is the secret sauce. This here is the hidden key. This will get you on to that hidden level. The gratitude. It's where it's at. It says in 1 Thessalonians, rejoice always. Pray continually. Give thanks in all circumstances. For this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus. Rejoice always. I don't feel like rejoicing, Niall. Rejoice always. Pray continually. I don't want to. I just pray continually. Give thanks. Niall, you don't realize what I'm going through. You don't realize I've nothing to be thankful for. No. You have so much to be thankful for. You just need to get your eyes off of yourself. And you need to put it back on Jesus. Because honestly, remember, we're living with a dream. We as a church, we're living with a dream. And the dream is that in 3 years, we're hoping to buy a building. This building. We don't have money. It's not for sale. But we're living with a dream. We want to go to 2 services in Easter. Oh, Niall, really? That's going to be more work. No, it's living with a dream. And you know what? If we go to 2 services and we have 10 people at the first service and 20 people at the second service, do you know what? In all circumstances, Lord, I thank you for your goodness. I thank you for your faithfulness. Lord, that even when it does not seem, or even though it does not look what it should look like, I'm still going to give you all honor and all glory.